again this night, and in the flames that eat thine effigy, we shall read the sign, Midsummer sets us free. You shall burn me once again.
Not with these flames, which hither ye have brought from regions where I reign. Ye fools and priests, I spit upon your fire.
Begone, dull care. Fire shall have its will of thee. Begone, dull care, and all the winds make merry with thy ducts. Hail, fellowship's eternal flame. Once again, Midsummer sets us free.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed.
about this week's mission. Bohemian Grove.
Yes! Outdoor Festival of the Year! It's like Burning Man, but they actually burn men.
Every year, it brings together the 6 societies that secretly rule the world. The Reptoids, the Atlanteans, the Catholic Church, the Juggalos, for some reason, us, and of course our arch rivals, the Illuminati.
So what's the deal with the Illuminati again? Basically, they're the cooler version of us.
This pompous D-bag is Dietrich Kluge, the head of the Illuminati, and my mortal enemy.
I hate that guy. Look how European he is.
He's always making the Illuminati fuck with Cognito, like the time they toilet papered our office.
Those artsy-fartsy Bavarian bastards.
Every year, he challenges us to the power struggle.
Rio, California, investigating the Bohemian Club. It's one of the most exclusive and secretive societies in the world. Every summer, the club holds a retreat at a place called the Grove, and many of the club are some of the richest and most powerful members of our country. We're talking about presidents, cabinet members, CEOs, generals, even Hollywood celebrities. The club has a strict policy of never revealing what goes on behind the gates of the Grove. So think of it like Fight Club for rich people, and you know rule number 1 of Fight Club. There are a variety of stories about what happens at the meetings, including decisions about, if you want to believe this, who even gets to run for president. However you slice it, these are some of the men who make the biggest decisions in America. And they're meeting annually in the California woods to discuss the future of our country. Not only that, but they're extremely vigilant about keeping outsiders away. People have tried for years to infiltrate this group with almost no success. So maybe it's just summer camp for rich people, but even if it is, why keep it so secret?
So you're a US politician with ambitions to run for the presidency one day. Day in and day out, you have to navigate the ruthless environment of Washington, D.C. Your enemies are watching your every move, getting in your way whenever they can. They're trying to get under your skin, hoping that you fly off the handle. They're working to destroy your reputation with nasty rumors they leak to the press. They're trying to use you as a puppet for their agenda. But you can't let any of that happen. You want to become US president after all. So you have to be on constant alert, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, fighting an uphill battle every step of the way. To make things worse, the mainstream media keeps attacking you on a daily basis. But you can't show any sign of weakness, so you just shrug it off as if it's no big deal. But even though you seem calm and collected on the outside, all these battles are starting to get under your skin. This presents a unique problem. How are you supposed to relieve all that stress? You can't just go to a nightclub with a few buddies to get drunk and dance the night away. No, no, no. You are a powerful man in the public eye. You have a reputation to uphold. The paparazzi would be all over that. And if you let go and act silly for just a second, the media would tear you apart. One wrong move, one scandal, and your political career is over. But you have to blow off some steam somehow. Otherwise, you will soon crack and have a complete mental breakdown. The solution? A secret, super exclusive camping trip reserved for the rich and powerful elite just like you. A place where you can let go of all your worries, enjoy creepy rituals, and network with the most powerful people in the world, far away from the watchful eyes of the public and the press. Welcome to Bohemian Grove. In the late 19th century, San Francisco was full of creative people with a can-do spirit. Artists lived out their creative streak in their paintings, novels, and dramas. And in the spring of 1872, around 150 years ago, a group of writers, actors, and journalists wanted to enjoy their art in a more exclusive and private setting. So they founded the Bohemian Club, a kind of secret society where artists could express themselves freely in all their unique ways, far away from all the ignorant people out there in the real world. There was just one problem. Most artists were quite poor. It's one thing to express yourself artistically and live the bohemian lifestyle, but at some point, you gotta pay rent. So the leaders of the Bohemian Club had an idea. Why not invite a few rich businessmen who appreciate the arts? They could enjoy the exclusive atmosphere of the club and brag about being friends with real artists of San Francisco. And in return, they could show their gratitude with some financial support. It was a brilliant move. All of a sudden, these artists could live out their wildest ideas while being supported by their sugar daddies. Their time as starving artists was finally over. Now, they just had to find a secret spot to enjoy their art together. And soon, they found the perfect place, a redwood forest near Monte Rio, California, or what they called the Bohemian Grove. They built camps for their members with strange names like Lost Angels, Owl's Nest, and Caveman, and every camp would be home to a few members who could get drunk together, build close friendships, and live out their artistic spirit. But even though it seemed like heaven on earth, the fate of the club would soon take a dramatic turn. You may think that these artists were living the dream, that they could run wild with their ideas while collecting money from their rich friends. But with so much money and status floating around, the club's dynamic quickly changed. Only 8 years after the club's founding, a group of painters and writers complained that the club had become too commercialized, too mainstream, and that the true bohemian spirit was dead. All this money and social aspirations meant death to genius and a general dead-level mediocrity. Artists were slowly being replaced by the powerful and wealthy elite of the country. Bankers, industry leaders, CEOs, leading scientists, they all wanted to join the exclusive party. And their money and influence made creativity take a back seat. Then another tribe of powerful men joined the club, US presidents. Dwight Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, George Bush Sr. They all joined the Bohemian Club before they became President of the United States. George Bush Sr. joined the club in 1973 and moved into the camp called Hillbillies. His roommates? Top executives from Bank of America and General Motors. 2 years later, Ronald Reagan was inducted into the Bohemian Club and moved into the Owl's Nest camp. While George Bush was chatting with the president of the Bank of America, Reagan was hanging out with the CEO of United Airlines. You may think that with so many powerful people rubbing shoulders, they make plenty of shady business deals or come up with secret plans to rule the world. But the club has a strict rule: weaving spiders come not here. Meaning, no networking, no business deals, no secret plans. The Bohemian Grove is a place to let go of your worries, enjoy the arts, and get wasted. But as you already know, rules are made to be broken. It's safe to say that everyone goes to Bohemian Grove with their own agenda. And how could you blame them? Over a nice dinner in the wilderness next to CEOs and presidents, secret deals happen on their own. It's rumored that the early planning stage of the infamous Manhattan Project happened during the Bohemian Grove in 1942. Only 3 years later, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leveling both cities and putting an end to World War II. One of the highlights of the Bohemian Grove are the so-called Lakeside Talks, the off-the-record speeches by politicians and business leaders. It's a chance for these powerful men to talk about their agenda to bend the world in their vision, far away from pesky reporters. Politicians especially love giving a lakeside. It's the perfect chance to get some exposure without violating the club's rule number 1, weaving spiders come not here. It's just a casual chat by a club member after all. But in reality, it may be the first day of their presidential campaign. They can share some of their ideas with the most powerful people in the country, see how they react, and find out who might back them should they decide to run for the presidency. And the one man who knows the importance of these lakeside talks better than anyone else is Richard Nixon. In 1950, Nixon listened to Eisenhower's lakeside speech, which must have charmed the right people. Nixon later said, quote,
"It struck me forcibly that Eisenhower's personality and personal mystique had deeply impressed the skeptical and critical caveman audience," end quote.
3 years later, Eisenhower became the next US president. 17 years later, it was time for Nixon's own lakeside speech. At that point, he was considered damaged goods because of his failed candidacy a few years earlier. So this time, he had to prove himself all over again. And it was a huge success. 2 years after his lakeside speech, Nixon moved into the Oval Office. He later wrote, quote, If I were to choose the speech that gave me the most pleasure and satisfaction in my political career, it would be my lakeside speech at the Bohemian Grove in July 1967. Because this speech traditionally was off the record, it received no publicity at the time, but in many important ways, it marked the first milestone on my road to the presidency." End quote. 3 years later, Nixon wanted to give another speech, now as President of the United States. There was just one small problem. The US president can't just disappear to get hammered in a forest and give a private speech to the most powerful men in the country. When the press heard about it, they said they would join the party to cover the event. And they had a few questions in mind. What were all these powerful men doing in a secluded forest in the middle of nowhere? What were they talking about? Is anything going on here that the public should know about? It wasn't exactly what the Bohemian Club wanted. Their secret rituals and speeches had to be protected at all costs. So the club leaders told Nixon to sit this one out. In 1995, former President George Bush Sr. used his lakeside speech to introduce a special guest, his son George W. Bush. And he had a clear message for his audience. His son would make a great president one day. And we all know how that one turned out.
On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
These lakeside speeches are still one of the best kept secrets in America. No one knows what they're talking about each year, and it's quite difficult to sneak around all those ex-military soldiers guarding the place. So if you want to see these lakeside talks live, so you know exactly what the powerful elite is planning next, maybe it's time for you to become a member of this secret society. And here is how. Step number 1. Have an impressive career in politics or business, preferably both. Step number 2. Get at least 2 Bohemian Club members to invite you to the club and have them vouch for your remarkable character. Step number 3. Impress the membership committee. Show them that you have what it takes to be a good Bohemian. If you have a talent for acting and drama, that's a big plus. Step number 4. Scrub any history of you watching this channel. Step number 5. Pray that the majority of the membership committee votes for you when it's time to pick new members. Step number 6. Enjoy your time being on the waiting list for the next 5 to 10 years. But don't just sit around. Use the time to become even richer and more powerful. Step number 7. You're finally accepted? Great! Welcome to the Bohemian Club. Now it's time to pay the initiation fee of $25,000. But you're a multimillionaire by now, so that's chump change. Step number 8. Get ready for the creepy ritual to kick off the yearly summer camp. Now that you've made it into this secret society, it's time for your first Bohemian Grove. And just like every year, it begins with a strange ritual called the cremation of care, a dark tradition meant to let you go of all your worries and responsibilities. As you're standing there in the middle of the forest, surrounded by millionaires, billionaires, and future presidents, all with the same tense faces, you feel that something strange is about to happen. Suddenly, you see a few men in red robes and red hoods marching forward. Some of them are playing sad music, others are carrying long torches. But they're carrying something else, an open coffin. You take a step closer and risk a look inside. Is that a human body? Is this some kind of satanic ritual? But then you look more closely and see that it's just a human effigy, a model of a person. Or maybe it is a real person, who knows? They call it the body of care, and it represents all the worries and woes that the powerful elite is carrying on their shoulders every single day. But now, it's time to burn all those worries away for good, or at least for a few days. The men slowly keep marching forward to the altar where Mr. Care is about to get sacrificed, under the watchful eye of a giant owl. Yes, you heard that right. The most powerful men in the country, wrapped in red robes, are about to burn a human effigy in front of a giant owl. After the choir finishes their song, the high priest announces that the pyre is waiting for the body of Care. A pyre is a heap of stuff that is to be lit on fire. The men carry the coffin to the pyre in front of the owl, and it seems like Mr. Care is about to meet his maker. But then Mr. Care makes it clear that he's not going to go down without a fight. After some intense back and forth, the priest has heard enough. He grabs a torch and lights the body of Care on fire. As the flames leap higher and higher, all the worries of the powerful elite melt away. Is the Bohemian Grove just a summer camp for powerful men who want to let go of their worries for a moment? Or do they actually use it to craft secret plans to rule over society far away from the public eye? Most likely both. After all, with so many powerful men coming together in a secluded forest, secured by ex-military men, it's hard not to discuss secret plans. Like the CIA's MK-Ultra program, for example. During the Cold War, the CIA believed the Soviets had found a way to turn everyday people into emotionless puppets that would do anything they told them to, including killing others without any sense of remorse. But instead of being horrified by the idea, the CIA was intrigued. So they started their own little side project called MK-Ultra. The scientists behind MK-Ultra would test all sorts of drugs and torture techniques on as many people as they could. One of their objectives was to turn their victims into a so-called Manchurian candidate, a programmed killer who would kill on command and forget about it a moment later. It's one of the darkest chapters in CIA history.
Bohemian Grove is a restricted 2,700-acre campground at 20,601 Bohemian Avenue in Monte Rio, California, United States, belonging to a private San Francisco-based gentlemen's club known as the Bohemian Club. In mid-July each year, Bohemian Grove hosts a more than 2-week encampment of some of the most prominent men in the world. The Bohemian Club's all-male membership includes artists and musicians, as well as many prominent business leaders, government officials, former U.S. presidents, senior media executives, and people of power. Members may invite guests to the Grove. Guests may be invited to the Grove for either the Spring Jinx in June or the main July encampment. Bohemian Club members can schedule private day-use events at the Grove anytime it is not being used for club-wide purposes, and they are allowed at these times to bring spouses, family, and friends, although female and minor guests must be off the property by 9 or 10 p.m. After 40 years of membership, the men earn old guard status, giving them reserved seating at the Grove's daily talks, as well as other perquisites.
Every July, some of the world's richest and most powerful men gather at this campground called Bohemian Grove. After the annual meet in 1942, the Manhattan Project came into existence. 3 years later, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. One of the highlights of Bohemian Grove is the Lakeside Talks, where these powerful men freely talk about their agenda. In 1967, Richard Nixon gave a lakeside speech. 2 years later, he became the president. In 1995, former President George Bush Sr. introduced his son to the camp. 5 years later, he also became the president. To top that off, there's a ceremony called Cremation of the Care. During this ceremony, world leaders gather around a giant stone owl and worship it. After a few minutes, people wearing red hooded cloaks bring a human effigy and place it before the owl. A priest then performs rituals on that effigy and sacrifices it by lighting the body on fire.
Hey, 42 here. What do Richard Nixon, Jack London, David Packard, Walter Cronkite, Herbert Hoover, Michel Rocard, George Bush Sr. and Clint Eastwood all have in common? Are they A, all American, B, all dead, or C, all one-time members of a shadowy secret society that carries out creepy and possibly satanic rituals in the woods at night? Well, let's see. Unless my timing with this video is really bad, then Clint Eastwood should still be alive, so that's B out. And former Prime Minister Michel Rocard was more French than frog's legs, so A's out as well. Which leaves us with C. But that obviously can't be true. I mean, all those important and respected men running around in the woods as part of some shady Illuminati-like organization? That would be insane. Actually, it is insane, because it's 100% true. Every single one of the people I just mentioned, presidents, actors, leaders of industry, celebrated writers, was, at one time or other, a member of the Bohemian Club. Perhaps the most powerful private organization in existence, and also one of the most controversial, thanks to its reputation for doing some, shall we say, unusual things when the world is looking the other way. The Bohemian Club was founded in San Francisco way back in 1872 by a group of journalists with an interest in the arts. But over the course of its near 150-year history, the demographic of its members has shifted dramatically. The artists are still there, but these days the journalists have mostly been replaced by a generous helping of some of the most influential men alive. We're talking multiple US presidents, CEOs of the world's largest companies, Ivy League university directors, curators of renowned museums, leading scientists, and a whole host of prominent politicians and policymakers from across the globe. It used to be said that if you weren't on the waiting list for membership by the age of 30, you'd be dead before being accepted. But it isn't just a long list of illustrious members that makes the Bohemian Club so intriguing, because every year a couple of thousand of its members descend on a private tract of redwood forest in Northern California for what can best be described as a 2-week scout camp with a twist. That twist being remarkable amounts of alcohol, a series of bizarre rituals, and some of the world's most powerful men in drag. Welcome to Bohemian Grove. The camp kicks off every year in the same strange and slightly terrifying fashion, with the ritual burning of a human sacrifice. I meant with the ritual burning of a human effigy in sacrifice. Sorry, that was quite an important difference, wasn't it? This ceremony, known as the cremation of care, is purely symbolic. The effigy represents the club members' many cares and responsibilities. By burning it, the worries of the outside world are banished. To spice things up a bit, the whole ceremony takes place under the watchful gaze of a towering 12-meter owl statue, the Bohemian Club's mascot. This Giga Owl takes an active part in the ceremony too, speaking in the pre-recorded voice of legendary newsreader Walter Cronkite. And just in case all of that wasn't weird enough, Bohemian Club members who take part in the ceremony all wear what look like Ku Klux Klan robes that someone accidentally put through the wash with a red sock. It probably sounds like I'm making all of this up, but seriously, the cremation of care ceremony happens each and every year to open the Bohemian Grove camp. Alex Jones of InfoWars fame even managed to film it once after sneaking into the Grove back in the year 2000. Scarily enough, having witnessed the ceremony firsthand, Jones was convinced it wasn't an effigy that was being burnt at all, but an actual living human child, sacrificed by these men who rule the world as part of some disturbing occultist ritual. Once the cremation of care is out of the way and everyone's worries have been thoroughly incinerated, the camp truly begins. The location itself is stunning, by the way. Nestled amongst towering California redwoods, the world's largest trees. Bohemian Grove is big enough to house several thousand club members simultaneously. There's an open-air dining circle that can seat 1,500 people, and as for sleeping arrangements, there are a dozen or so smaller camps spread across the site, each with its own distinct reputation and famous patrons. George Bush Sr., Walter Cronkite, and NASA astronaut Frank Borman are known to have favoured a camp known as Hillbillies, and Herbert Hoover was a long-time occupant of Caveman. Make of that what you will. This picture from 1967 was taken at breakfast in a camp called Owl's Nest, one of the most prestigious. Harvey Hancock is the one in the middle. He was Eisenhower's campaign manager during the 1952 American election. The guys sitting on either side? Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. Oil magnate Edwin Pauly and Nobel Prize-winning chemist Glenn Seaborg are also present. So, how do these masters of the universe spend their 2-week sojourn in the forest? Aside from burning children alive, obviously. Well, There are daily lakeside talks given by important club members, and regular entertainment in the form of high and low jinks, which are basically just performances of various kinds, usually comedy or music. But what Bohemian Grove is really all about is getting hammered, then urinating, both frequently and aggressively. The first drink of the day, a gin fizz, is served in bed by camp staff, and the alcohol keeps on flowing until long after the sun's gone down. Unsurprisingly, considering Bohemian Club members are almost exclusively gentlemen of advanced years, with prostates the size of medicine balls, there's a lot of visits to the little boys' room. Or at least there would be, if there actually was a little boys' room. Bohemian Club members urinate exclusively in the great outdoors, a privilege so important to them they've even fought to defend it in court. I'll get to that in a minute. With so many influential people rubbing shoulders, you're probably assuming that plenty of important business deals and world-altering policy decisions are made at the camp every year. But the club is strict when it comes to talking business. Its motto is, "Weaving spiders come not here." A line from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream that warns that Bohemian Grove isn't supposed to be used as an opportunity to network or do business deals. But like basically all mottos ever, this one is widely ignored. Plenty of people go to Bohemian Grove with an agenda, and whilst most of the earth-shattering decisions that have been made during boozy nights amongst the redwoods are remembered only by those involved, a few have become public knowledge. For example, rumour has it that an early planning meeting for Manhattan Project, including the likes of Robert Oppenheimer and Nobel Prize-winning physicist Ernest Lawrence, took place during the 1942 iteration of Bohemian Grove, directly leading to the invention of the atomic bomb. Earth-shattering indeed. By the way, if all this important people get together to do weird stuff in the woods business is sounding kind of familiar, it may be that you're a House of Cards fan. In Series 5 of the Netflix show, Frank Underwood, played by Kevin Spacey, goes on an outdoor retreat with a fictional secret society known as Elysian Fields, which draws heavily on Bohemian Grove. The episode opens with a parody of the cremation of care ceremony, complete with a giant talking crow statue and the burning of a human effigy. Elysian Fields has a motto too: "Buzzing bees do not sting here." It's a minor miracle the Bohemian Club didn't sue. Considering the guest list, you won't be surprised to learn that security at the Grove is taken very seriously. The Redwood Enclave is watched over by what can best be described as a small private army, kitted out with high-tech gear, including thermal cameras, night vision goggles, and both motion and vibration sensing alarms. The US Secret Service has also been known to lend a hand from time to time when the guest list demands it. I should probably mention that Bohemian Grove and the Bohemian Club in general has come in for its fair share of criticism over the years, mostly due to what some people see as sexist policies. No woman has ever been a full member in the club's 150-year history, and female staff aren't employed at Bohemian Grove in any capacity, unless you believe the rumour that the club's prepared to relax its gender policies when it comes to prostitutes. When the club was first formally charged with discrimination in 1978, they fought back, arguing that their members wouldn't be able to urinate as openly and liberally as they wanted to if women were present at Bohemian Grove. The court ruled in their favour. That decision was eventually overturned, but the Bohemian Club did the litigatory equivalent of asking to see the judge's manager by filing an appeal with the California Superior Court. At the subsequent trial, they argued that being male should be considered an occupational qualification. And since most women struggle mastering the skill of having a penis, they simply aren't qualified to work at the Grove. The court, once again, ruled in the club's favour. The world's changed quite a bit in the last 40 years, hasn't it? Oh, I should probably mention that the California Superior Court judge who reached this somewhat controversial decision was known to have attended Bohemian Club events on several occasions. But I'm sure that had absolutely nothing to do with this decision whatsoever. Bohemian Grove ends every year as it began, with an elaborate performance. Though thankfully no children, real or otherwise, are burned in this one. Instead, a majestic redwood-rimmed arena with seating for up to 2,000 people, roughly the same capacity as London's Royal Opera House, hosts an end-of-camp performance known as the Grove Play. Written and performed exclusively by Grove Club members and supported by a full orchestra and production team. It's reported that Grove plays, which are only ever performed a single time, can cost upwards of $150,000 to stage. Oh, and since no women are allowed to become members of the club, any female characters are played by men in drag. The Oxford English Dictionary defines a bohemian as an artist, literary man, or actor who leads a free, vagabond, or irregular life. And I don't know about you, but George Bush Sr. isn't the first person that springs to mind when I hear the word vagabond. I'm not the only one who's picked up on this little contradiction either. When Oscar Wilde visited the Bohemian Club in 1882, he was heard commenting that he'd never seen so many well-dressed, well-fed, business-looking bohemians in all his life. Despite the somewhat optimistic branding, there's no doubt the Bohemian Club and its 2-week urination orgy in California will continue to capture the public's imagination for as long as it exists. There's just something inherently intriguing about so many important people gathering under such unusual circumstances to do all these bizarre things. We normals have always been interested in how the other half lives. Although I think it's safe to say that up until now, most of us assumed it was more Learjets and mansions than ritual burnings and drag. So, is Bohemian Grove a place where a bunch of old white guys in various states of midlife crisis go to recapture their lost college days? Or the hub of an Illuminati-like organisation with a penchant for burning babies? I'll leave that up to you. Oh, and one last conspiracy theory for you before I go. This is the US Capitol building, seen from above. Notice anything strange? It looks a bit like an owl, right? Some people believe that's a quiet nod to the Bohemian Club, right in the heart of Washington, D.C. And, intriguingly enough, the current design for the grounds was drawn up in 1874, 2 years after the Bohemian Club was founded. Of course, back then, the club was literally no more than a bunch of journalists with no power whatsoever. But hey, why let the truth get in the way of a good conspiracy?
There are numerous amounts of secret groups across the world.
What would happen if I found out the secret handshake and I weren't a Mason?
Nothing.
You wouldn't have to kill me?
There have been these meetings of what was referred to in these texts as a secret society.
Basically a secret society within the secret society. They've been rumored for many, many years. I will not say whether or not they exist.
Now what if I told you there's one that meets only once a year at the Redwood Grove in Sonoma County, California, and has spawned sinister internet rumors based off of the club's reported rituals and secretive status.
So shall we proceed once again this night?
This group is called the Bohemian Club.
And if these motherfuckers are doing anything that involves human sacrifice, hurting human beings, then it's the worst thing on earth, and I'm so sorry that I said anything about it.
Now, because of its secrecy, strange ceremonies, and elite body of members, the Bohemian Club has long been the subject of sinister online rumors.
For whatever reason, the people in the crowd were really into this ceremony.
This controversial group was created in 1872 and began renting a campground for an annual retreat in 1899, which became a landing spot for U.S. presidents, military officials, artists, and business leaders as members. Many people over the years have tried to illegally infiltrate this secret society, only to be met with charges for trespassing.
I don't know anything about you, and I don't know anything about your film, but if you go in there with an understanding, you violated that understanding by releasing that film, and I don't respect you for that.
Truthfully, the only strange thing to occur at this camp is the cremation of care ceremony. Which is a well-documented 50-minute dramatic play involving a mock human sacrifice to the pagan god Moloch.
The owl motifs at Bohemian Grove was indicative of the fact that it was like Moloch, the owl god.
There are many modern depictions of Moloch, as he is originally depicted as a bull with human-like features. The cult of Moloch is said to have boiled human children alive in the bowels of a big bronze statue with the body of a man and the head of a bull. However, the statue appears to more closely resemble Minerva, the Roman goddess of war. In Greek mythology, a little owl traditionally represents or accompanies Minerva, the syncretic incarnation of Athena in Roman mythology. Now this could explain why the statue better resembles an owl.
I don't know what's going on at the fucking Bohemian Grove, but from what I've heard, it's basically a summer camp for billionaires where they try to get artists in there to like loosen them up a little bit. That's what I've heard. I could be wrong.
Who told you this? Is this?
I honestly can't fucking say.
You don't really understand sometimes what a terrible burden it is to know some of the things that I know. And try to wake people up and impart this knowledge to them. And find out that they just have walls built in front of them. They want to be slaves.
Now I risk sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but it's no longer a theory. What I'm about to say is fact. The secret organizations of the world power elite are no longer secret. They have planned and are now leading us into a one-world communist government.
Take a journey with me deep inside the rabbit hole. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Everything you ever thought you knew, it has to go. For instance, NASA is the world's largest magic show. 9/11 was a planned demolition and Sandy Hook was a scam. Come on, man, are you tripping? Constant programming being crammed in your vision. Just take a step back and examine this prison. Turn on the news and they're trying to blind you. All they ever do is tell you lies and divide you. There's nowhere you can even hide, they'll find you. Illuminati all-seeing eye right behind you. It's about time you find out we're being lied to. They're attempting to control the mind that's inside you. Hide you from the power that designed you. Does anybody have a problem with this? Well, I do. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. They're lying to us about everything. How can this be? I know I'm not crazy, and yet I'm questioning my sanity. I see what the Illuminati's doing to humanity. The truth is stranger than fiction. We're living in a fantasy. What I'm witnessing is unreal. It's a one-way battle for us cattle going uphill. If we don't stand and fight now, then no one will. Our children will never know freedom. It's a done deal. The future's not looking so promising. It's the poor who go to war while the rich keep on profiting. It's us that they're slaughtering and money that they're honoring. And soon it's gonna be the new world order that they're offering. It's mind-boggling how so many don't seem aware. And if they are, it's like they really just don't even care. Our world is broken and I'm hoping it can be repaired. But we'll have to fight for it, so just be prepared. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They say they got it, but they're never coming up with proof. If you're looking, then they got you jumping through these hoops. The lies always continuing to rise and busting through the roof.
Forget the politicians. Politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking.